All right. It's Christopher Isherwood. I'm the novelist. I'm the one that wrote the great play Cabaret. Well, I've been shanghaied into giving you a video about what a mind virus is, and I'm really not the right author. What you really need is William S. Burrows, because he knows more about mind viruses than anyone ever. You just have to take a look at his books, or if you could find a YouTube video, William S. Burrows, he knows everything. Now, I'm going to try my best because, as I said, he's not available. Now, what's a mind virus? Generally afflicting, I can't come up with an accent. I'm trying to do William S. Burroughs. He's got this accent, and I can't do it. I'm sorry. It's his American accent, and I'm just not American. I've been trying for anyway. I can't do it. But anyway, if we were going to do Burroughs, he would tell you a mind virus is generally something that you get from a typewriter. All viruses come from typewriters. All right, it's Christopher again. You have to remember that Burroughs basically was a very old man when, computers were invented. So he was really, he was a beatnik from the 1950s. They didn't have computers then. They had typewriters. All right, we're going back to Burroughs. All right, I can't do it. I don't know. Maybe if I change hats. All right, now this is not going to work neither. I hate this hat. It looks bloody stupid. Jesus, who bought this silly hat? All right, put my regular hat back on. A mind virus it comes from typewriters. Now you must understand, this is a different Burroughs who actually came up with the whole theory. Is a different spelling. His name is Robert David Burrows, and he came up with the real answer about everything that goes on planet Earth. How it happens is another video, but in essence, this is what goes on. All right, there's a planet. It's called Krishna's planet. You can't get there from here. I'm terribly sorry if you got a spaceship, because it's a higher dimensional. But on this planet, Krishna lives. And Krishna, as you may know, he was a famous bloke from that Indian book, ancient Sanskrit or something. I haven't read it. I don't understand Sanskrit. I use English. But if you get a translation, it's called Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna was in that one. Anyway, he's got a planet. How did I know? Well, I read this other book. It's by a Swami from India. He founded the Hare Krishna people. What was his name? Prabhupada. It sounds almost Greek, like Papadopoulos, but it's Prabhupada. And well, he founded that cult that used to be in all the airports all around, Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Anyways, it's very difficult. But anyway, what happened was Krishna got his own planet, and on board the planet, there's a book. It's a self-writing book. What's a self-writing book? Well, if you went and you bought a journal, and you got your journal, it's got blank pages in it, and that's what this book is. And then the self-writing book, well, it's an old-fashioned pen. It could actually be one of those quill pens, it's like a seagull feather, and then they sharpen up the end of it, and then they got old-fashioned inkwell. And if you're young, you never heard of an inkwell, but it's just a jar full of India ink. And this, let's go with the quill. The quill pen dips itself into the India ink, and then it goes over to the journal, and it starts writing. And it writes every single thing that's going to happen here on planet Earth. It's basically the script writer for planet Earth. So, in essence, it's not a typewriter. It's actually now there's no hand. This thing, it's a magic quill. It just gets up and it does it. If you ever watched the old Walt Disney's flick, it was Bed Knobs and Broomsticks with Angela Lansbury. That gives you a good idea because she made things move like suits of armor. She got a spell. In the movie, they had to go to Cartoon Land to go and find this spell. They had to play soccer against a bunch of... Anyways, you must see that movie. It's marvelous. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. I don't know if Dick Van Dyke's in it. It's Angela Lansbury. Anyways, so this is what happens on Krishna's planet. This stupid book writes itself, and it's the script for my life, your neighbor's life, and your mom's life, and everyone else's life on the whole damn planet. It must go super fast, but it's all written on Krishna's planet. And then what happens is it's somehow transferred to Earth, and we follow the script. We don't even know we're following a script. We're falling down on the damn script. But every time something bad goes, I say that damn book, it wrote a horrible thing, horrible script. So, now if we go back to William S. Burrows, he talked about these kind of, I don't know if he used the terminology of mind viruses, but in essence, if you follow his work, he says the typewriters are, well, he says they're sexual. If you ever watched that movie, The Naked Lunch, there was a novel it was based upon, but in the movie, you can kind of get an idea. These things are disgusting, these typewriters, They want me to go into Star Trek. There was an episode of Star Trek Voyager where Tucker, I think he was the engineer, Tucker, he went on board a foreigner's ship, and this woman, she wanted him to play with. Do you know at Halloween time, in the olden days, they used to take like grapes, and they in the haunted house, they would take the grapes and they would get them all slimed up with something. I don't know what they used. They get very slimy grapes. And then as the children walk through the haunted house, they would dip their hands, take the little hand, and they dip it into this grape bowl. And then they would say, these are the eyeballs of the zombies. And the children would love it. They loved it. But in this episode of Star Trek, it was, no, it wasn't Voyager. It was the other one, Enterprise. Tucker, I think his name was, the engineer. Anyways, he got in playing with these, it looked like, have you ever had bubble tea? It's that bubble tea, those little gelatin balls are like grapes, but smaller. And that's what he was doing. He was getting his hands into a bowl of bubble tea grapes, whatever you call those things. And he was putting his hands in. And then the other woman of a foreign species, she was coming the other way with her hand, both of them in, mixing around with the bubble tea grapes. Next thing you know, this is a spoiler alert if you haven't seen this episode of Star Trek Enterprise, so spoiler alert. Tucker got back to the Enterprise, and lo and behold, he got pregnant playing with this foreign species thing by doing just putting his hands among those grape things. So what does it mean? Well, it's the same kind of disgusting thing that happened with Burrows and his typewriter. And so the mind virus, well, you can blame that damn book, Krishna's Planet. We always do. But Burrows would blame the typewriter. Because in his day, that's the way. I don't think he ever heard of the Bhagavad Gita. I could be wrong. But anyway, I never heard of him talking about Krishna. But that's the way it really worked out, because Robert David Burrows, he wrote a book about some of this stuff. Can't remember the name. But anyway, he got this a long time ago through muscle testing. If you've never heard about muscle testing, then you got to go and read Dr. David R. Hawkins. Not Hawking, not the guy who was in a wheelchair and used an artificial voice. David R. Hawkins. He was a great psychiatrist, and he was a friend of the Nobel Prize winning scientist Linus Pauling. Now, I know this has been, I'm muddying the water terribly, but what is a mind virus? Well, in the case of the typewriter, well, it would give you, it would be writing the script for the news readers at, like the BBC or NBC in America, and it would give them the script. And the script would say, well, in Wuhan, China today, they had an outbreak of coronavirus. It's a good thing. I mean, I'm not going to tell you the story about, Mexico. They had coronavirus. It's called Montezuma's Revenge. Montezuma's Revenge is for tourists, The tourists go there and they end up sitting on the toilet bowl for 3 hours because it's coming out both ends. Montezuma's Revenge, but that's coronavirus. And the mind virus is because you listened to the newscaster on the BBC or on NBC talk about Wuhan. And, no one's ever been to Wuhan, China. If you go to China, you go to the Great Wall of China, everyone knows, or you go to Hong Kong because it was formerly British, and at least you can go there and it's going to be clean. I wouldn't go to Beijing. I hear that the whores are unbelievably cheap in Beijing. The whores, they basically throw themselves at you, and all they want you to do is, go like this. And, so I don't want to be swamped by whores in Beijing. And, the Great Wall, it's all protected by the Chinese army. They didn't want anybody to come across the wall from Mongolia, outer or inner. So, they guard the wall even to this day. So it's pretty safe, soldiers all over the place there. They don't let any ruffians around. That was Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan came from Mongolia. He was, they said he was like the Chinese emperor, but he was really Mongolian. He was a horseman, great horseman from Mongolia, and they conquered China, and then he became the emperor. In India, if we go back to India and the Bhagavad Gita, it's, the Mughal, they called them, the Mughal emperors. They had emperors all over the planet back in those days. Anyway, as far as your mind virus, what do you do about it? What you do about it is not up to you, because that damn book on Krishna's planet is going to write a script for you personally, how you're going to deal with the corona. Whether you're going to drink it out of bottles, or you're going to have someone sneeze on you and get a nasty cold. So it's not up to you. There's nothing you can do about it by worrying about it, unless it's in your script that you're going to be a worrywart, and some people are. It's this damn book. If I could get to Krishna's planet, I would go there with 10 gallons of gasoline. I'd pour it all over this damn book, and I'd have a bonfire, because I don't like the scripts. I write better scripts myself. Somebody's going to ask me, well, isn't that script that you write written by Krishna's planet book first? I don't want to think about it that way. Well, then it's going to want authorship of everything I wrote, and I know I made a lot of royalties off of Cabaret, Now I'm doing it Australian accent. How the hell am I getting it? It's that damn book. That damn book's playing with me all the time. Everything that comes out of my mouth, it's just like scribbling it away on Krishna's planet. What can you do about it? Well, you can go and look up that Swami, Prabhupada. Anyway, just look up Hare Krishna. And then you can go on to like Amazon.com. And Prabhupada Badopoulos wrote so many books about Hare Krishna, and they're quite good. But I must warn you, you must probably be like a Shiva person. Do you know Shiva? Back to ancient India. People who worship Shiva like to smoke chillum. What the hell's chillum? Well, it's not candy cigarettes. It's not clove artificial cigarettes. It's not even tobacco cigarettes. It's cannabis sativa. It's indica. Anyway, it's cannabis, it's the wacky tobacco, the electric lettuce. And that's what they smoke. What was I talking about? I'm so off topic. Anyway, so if you worship Shiva, you smoke And if you smoke marijuana, it gets you in the. What was I talking about? I wasn't smoking marijuana today. It's that damn book on Krishna's planet. Oh, we're talking about the that man, Swami Prabhupada, and he founded Hare Krishna, and he wrote all kinds of books about a true bona fide spiritual master. And there's only one, in his opinion, and it's Krishna. He also wrote an interesting book, the Swami, Easy Travel to Other Planets. Now, if you get that book on your hand, you might get yourself to Krishna's planet. Now, how does he do it? Does it yogi style. So I think they smoke a bunch of chillum, and then they get, in the pose, in the yogi pose, and then they close their eyes, and then they exit out the top of their head using their dream body. It goes out, and then it goes to another planet. There's all kinds of talk. Even the Tibetans use the same technique. They go and they block themselves in caves. They get a cave, and then they get a bricklayer to come in with a whole pile of bricks, and they brick in the front, and then they're locked in there, and they have a little slat. It's like an old-fashioned prison cell, and you open the slat, and then they slide in some of that ox dung that they like to turn to tea. They boil ox dung in Tibet. Didn't you know that? Well, there's nothing that grows in the Himalayas. The only thing that they do is they get those cow patties from the oxen, and they boil it up, and they add some yak butter, and they boil it up with some. Well, they just go out and they get some snow from the Himalayas, and they melt the snow, and that's the water for the tea. And as far as cooking, I understand that you can actually burn cow patties or ox patties. They used to call them road apples back in the olden days because they had, you know, residual things that weren't digested then when it went through the cow or the ox, and you could burn them, and that's how you would make your tea. They don't waste anything in those countries. They're very poor countries. They don't have. There's no wood, no firewood up in the Himalayas. I wonder if there's coal. Maybe they could get into coal. Because in Britain, we have lots of seams of coal in the mountainous areas. I mean, it's not mountains like the Himalayas. It's more like hills. Unless you go to Scotland. No one goes to Scotland since Lady Macbeth. It was scared the bloody Jesus out of me. The crazy Scotswoman, going around with murder. I could write a novel about Lady Macbeth. Anyway, if you want to know more about these mind viruses, don't bother reading anything other than Edgar Rice Burrows. There's so many Burroughses that are authors. He was the one that wrote Tarzan of the Jungle, and then he wrote all these interesting ones that they made 1950s B movies out of. Like Journey to the Center of the Earth. How do you do it? Modern day, these flat earth people, they say you go to Antarctica, and then there's a little tunnel, and you go in the tunnel, and then you go into the inner earth. And how it can work on flat earth, I can't figure these people out. I think they're bloody stupid, but anyways. So in the end, it's a mind virus, the coronavirus. And will it make you sick and die? It depends upon that damn book on Krishna's planet. If it's written in a script that you're going to drop dead from whatever, and it happens to be coronavirus, then where do you go? It's going to write the script for you. Does it write the script for you after you leave Earth? I don't know. I have to do some research with Robert David Burrows. Are there any other Burrowses that you really need to know? Well, William S. Burroughs, who I mentioned earlier, the beatnik poet who was into typewriters, he was a bum. He was an opium den connoisseur. He loved his opium. He shot his wife right in the head. What he did is he got a shot glass, an old style heavy glass, shot glass, and he put it on the top of her head like this. And then he was remembering the legend of William Tell. He was the the I don't know, you're probably from the Midlands in Britain, who used a bow and arrow to shoot an apple off of Newton's head, Isaac Newton, the physicist. He shot he shot the apple off his head with a bow and arrow, and he did a good job. But when William S. Burrows tried the same trick, he got a shot glass, and of course he was drinking that bourbon, that Southern bourbon, horrible stuff that they grow in Alabama or something, Alabama Slammer. He put this on his wife's head, and then he got out his trusty pistol. I'm not sure what caliber the pistol was, but it must have been pretty good. And, bloody hell, the man, he shot at his wife at the little shot glass. I don't know if it was full of liquor at the time or not. And he missed, and he hit her straight here in the forehead, and she was done. She was done. So he killed his wife, and you can blame that damn book on Krishna's planet. And that he got off because he was the scion. What's a scion? It's like an heiress, someone who is, in the family of rich people. So he was a scion of the Burrows business machines, which was bigger than IBM before IBM got into computers. Burrows was a huge organization, especially in the 1950s. Every business had a Burrows cash register. Anyways, somehow, because of his connections and his money, he was able to escape to Mexico. And then he ended up down in the South American Amazon because he was looking for this stuff called yage. Yage. In today's parlance, they call it ayahuasca. It comes from the vines of the Amazon. And it's also, at least in the 1950s, it was called telepacine. Because if you took this brew, you would develop telepathy. Now, I know this is a long-winded story, and you're pretty lucky to be watching it here on YouTube because it's 22 minutes and I can only get 15 minutes onto Instagram TV, so those blokes don't get to hear my story. But you do, and in the end, so coronavirus is a mind virus. Is there any kind of virus that's not a mind virus? Why do we call it a virus, a mind virus? Well, William S. Burrows would say it's a mind virus because you got it virally. In the olden days, it would be from reading the newspaper before they had telly. And you heard about this virus, and then you got all worried about it, and then you got it. That's how they believed you transferred things. You heard about it, and it's kind of a hypnotic thing, The BBC lady, she goes on for 10 minutes on the hour, every hour, and she gives you the bloody news. They do this in Canada too, the bloody CBC. They play lovely music for an hour, and then the CBC comes on the hour, and they give you horrible news, the worst news from around the world every hour. It's a mind virus, and it gets in you because you're all relaxed, right? You're hypnosist because they're playing all this lovely music, mood music, and then this nasty shit comes on the radio, and it goes right into your noggin, and then you develop what horrible disease they've been talking about. So if you're in Canada, don't listen to the CBC. You're bound to die if you listen to the CBC. Thank you for listening. I'm Christopher Isherwood. Please subscribe, and you might hear from some of my animals from Angela Lansbury's movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks.